Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. In the year 2020, we are joined by Dan, as always. Doesn't matter what year, what century, we're here with Dan. How's it going, Dan?
Hey there, my man, buddy. How's it? How are you doing? Happy New Year, everybody. Well, this is it, guys. 2020 is here, and we are so glad to be with you guys right now to celebrate the new year. And I'm so thrilled to be with Pujix, actually, on this wonderful occasion to actually talk with you guys, our wonderful listeners, about the New Year's Eve. And I'm so happy to be here and to have the experience to spend time with Pujix, with you guys listeners. And life is wonderful. Happy New Year.
Awesome. Yeah. Happy New Year, guys. This is going to be awesome. Another episode, another, conversation between me and Dan, and it's going to be legendary. Today, we're talking about the new year, actually, obviously. Now, we all turning a new leaf. We're all changing, making changes in our lives, writing the resolution. I hope you've already written them, of course. But the point is, to me, I don't know about you, Dan. I think you think similarly, but to me, these increments in the year, for example, New Year's, I don't know, birthdays, etc. These are basically a reminder of changes that comes to our lives. Obviously, it's a reminder of the time that is passing, but it's also a time to sit down and reflect, look at the year that has passed, gone by, and look at the time that you have ahead, and think about all of that. Put stuff in perspective. Put new goals. Find what you want to do in the future, the rest of your life. See how you've come, how far you've come, mistakes you made, the right choices you made, accomplishments, etc., and put everything in perspective. This is how I generally, very basically, generally speaking, look at these events. They're just a random day on the calendar, and there's a random position of the Earth around the sun. They really don't matter, but for me personally, for the symbols that they hold. How do you look at these events? Such as New Year's, birthdays, etc. Now let's talk about New Year's because of the occasion.
That's right.
Yeah. How do you look at them?
Very well. First of all, you mentioned something very nice about this whole symbolism, because I really believe that New Year is, in reality, when you think about this, it's just an arbitrary thing. And I myself, basically, I work in multiple countries around the world, and the very notion of New Year is very different from nation to nation, basically. So we have those who, for example, for the people in the West, we of course is on January 1st. Then we have the Chinese who have their own New Year, basically. And many different nations, they have their own New Year's, basically different calendars. And ultimately, the New Year is really nothing more than that symbol. And that symbol is a symbol of starting all over again and having a chance to renew ourselves, our lives, and our perspective. So it really is nothing more than that symbol that you mentioned yourself, that we want to somehow feel fresh, kind of like the birthday thing and many other occasions in life that we tend to repeat. And this is one of those things, because if we do not basically find ourselves in situations where we have the opportunity to look around and to somehow inspect what just happened in the past, let's say a few months, then obviously we cannot truly make a good life. There's a famous quote that says, "An unexamined life is not worth living." So part of the new year is actually the chance to start examining our lives and to know what it is that we want from our lives. What have we done so far, and what are we going to do basically next? And using this occasion, obviously, will help us so much to actually make the most of this experience and to know what we're going to do next, basically, which is why, for me personally, it's a very important occasion. Just like yourself, Pujix, I spend a lot of my time thinking about this occasion, writing my basically goals. We call it New Year's resolution. But unfortunately, there's sad news, and that is that unfortunately, the majority of our New Year's resolutions will have been forgotten by January 15th of that very year, in almost 2 weeks. And this is not just some, some weird claim. This is proven. It's by statistics, actually, that the majority of us, we abandon almost all of our New Year's resolution by the January 15th of that year. Guys, give it a month, please. Just a month.
Yeah. Now, I got a question for you. Why do you think that is? Why do you think this happens? Are we just forgetful?
Of course. Well, first of all, I really believe that the reason is very simple. It's because, unfortunately, most of us, we have not been taught how to set goals throughout the year. And if you only do something once a year, of course you will not be good at it, right? Because it's kind of like anything else. I mean, if you do anything once per year, can you be good at it? I don't know. If you, I don't know, learn a foreign language and study, I don't know, once per day, per year, you just sit down and study a foreign language. Are you going to become fluent? What if you sit down for one day per year and start making business plans? Are you going to become a, I don't know, multi-millionaire? I mean, you cannot really get good at anything if you do it only once per year. And the problem with goal setting is it's not taught in schools. It's not, popular in our, popular culture. And because of that, we tend to somehow feel like, oh my gosh, it's just a New Year's resolution. Let's do something. But it's kind of like an athlete who just goes to the gym, I don't know, for example, once a year. I mean, he or she cannot really compete in the Olympics, right? So for that reason, because New Year's resolution is very popular in our culture, so everybody does it. But since they have not really learned how to set and achieve goals, they lack the skill, because goal setting and goal achieving itself is a skill. It requires hard work. So because of that, they just back off after basically 2 weeks and like, oh, I'm not gonna forget about it, basically. However, if the same people on how to set and achieve goals throughout the year, and of course they would be more than ready to basically set goals on the New Year's resolution, and of course achieve them as well. That's the main reason. And of course the other one is that usually on New Year's resolution, people do not set goals that they truly care about or they really think about, because it's like one day, like we're sitting there with our family, let's let our New Year's resolution just pop on television or on social media. So people don't put so much thoughts into it, and they end up setting goals that are not necessarily what they truly want, or they set goals that are not actually achievable. Like, I don't know, some weird things they cannot do anything about, right? Because goal setting itself is a skill, and you cannot just do it. You just say, all right, I'm going to write down a goal, right? It's not like that. There's a process. We call it the SMART goal setting method, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and of course, time bound. So it's kind of like that. It's like the thing that you do once every now and then. You cannot be really good at it, right? It's kind of like, hanging out. Imagine like you want to hang out with your nephews basically for the weekend, and they're going to play Call of Duty, and you've never played Call of Duty, so you're going to get, shot all the time, right? It's kind of like that, in that you haven't done it so much, so you don't have the experience to do it very well. And that is why, unfortunately, the majority of our New Year's resolutions, unfortunately, are forgotten 2 weeks after that. And the only possible solution, of course, is to not limit our goal setting to merely the New Year's Eve.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You're right. Like, if you don't have practice, you're not going to get good at it. And goal setting and resolutions are basically kind of skills that you need to develop over time. If you're doing it once a year, yeah, I mean, it takes years for you to get it. Maybe if at all. Anyway, exactly. So now let's for those of us who are a little bit slow on this skill, can you give us some pointers, like in the general goal setting, but let's make it specific to New Year's again for the occasion. We're all enjoying the new year, I hope. And just some pointers that you personally use as a goal setter, because I know you set goals and you go out there and try to attain them. So I think you're a good person to ask. What are some pointers for? Okay, let's actually break one pointer for each skill level. One pointer for the beginners, one for the intermediates, and one for the advanced.
Wow, that's amazing. Never thought about that. We can actually divide people into goal setters as levels. That was pretty cool. We're going to assume that the majority of our listeners are in the intermediate or elementary category.
Sounds good.
Because it's generally not basically common to set a lot of goals. But overall, from my point of view, if you're getting started with the whole goal setting thing, I believe that it's best to set the kind of goals that you somehow will not have to make a lot of effort to accomplish, because all the goals basically that you set for yourself, it depends on how hard it is to achieve, right? For example, if you tell yourself, I will lose 30 pounds in the next 2 weeks, that is one goal. And if you tell yourself, I will lose weight by simply reducing my calorie intake with about 150 calories per day, that's like, I don't know what, a little bit less cereal, or maybe like one fewer cup of coffee per day without the milk and stuff. So I really believe that if you set the kind of goals that you can achieve and make those goals winnable, you will eventually fall in love with the process of goal setting. And I really believe that the reason that we do not like to set goals on New Year's Eve is because we tend to either not like the process, or we set the kind of goals that we cannot achieve anytime soon. I mean, imagine a very bad goal for a New Year's resolution is like, I will get rich this year. This is a very bad goal. Why? Number one, I will get rich this year. Number one, it lacks any specific details. What do you mean by rich? Does rich mean, I don't know what? multimillionaire? Does it mean, I don't know, paying off all your debts? Does it mean to buy a new car? Does it mean to, I don't know, run a multi-billion-dollar enterprise around the world? I mean, what do you mean by rich? So this is not very specific. The first error that most of us make in goal setting, especially on New Year's Eve, I mean, let's be honest, champagne's around, alcohol's around, so we're not exactly thinking very clearly, right? So the biggest error that we have, I mean, like we just set goals that are just too general, like I'll be rich, or I'll be happy, or I don't know, I'll have a better life. These are not goals. These are wishful thinking, and they're not actually, they don't even have, any power behind them. So the first mistake that most of us make in setting goals on a New Year's Eve is that they're not very specific. So of course, the attitude here is make them as specific as possible. So instead of saying I'll be rich in 2020, you can say in the year 2020, I will increase my income by about 12% or 20% or 50%, depending on your level of error. Now, if of course, if you have not worked so hard in achieving big financial goals, it's better to keep it as realistic and as achievable as possible to enjoy the process. It's really no different than like playing games. Like video games. Like if you're playing, I don't know, Angry Bird on your phone, you can play on the easiest difficulty in the earlier levels, and then it's going to be very fun. But if you jump suddenly to the final level, you'll be just very confused and at the same time very basically upset and frustrated. So the same thing goes with goals. So if you've been, I don't know, perhaps you've never set any financial goal, then probably just getting out of debt in the year 2020 will be a great goal. Like let's say you have about $20,000 on credit. Maybe you have student loan, I don't know, worth $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Just saying that I will pay my student loan or I get out of debt, but in the 2020 would be a great goal because it's more realistic and of course it's very specific. The second biggest mistake that we make when it comes to setting, New Year's resolution goals is that we don't put good deadlines. The year 2020 is not a deadline. That's 12 months. Each month is 30 days. And so it's not very specific. The other thing that we can do in this regard is to actually set better deadlines for our New Year's goals. For example, back to our, let's say, losing weight and getting out of debt. So you can say, for the next 3 months, I will reduce my food intake by about 150 calories per day. And hopefully after about 3 to 4 months, I will be able to actually lose 30 pounds. Now, this is a specific goal. You want to lose 30 pounds. You want to reduce your calorie intake by 150 calories, and you have a deadline, which is basically April of that year, right? So now you have a very good goal. You have a very good New Year's resolution. For your finances, again, I want to get out of debt in the year 2020. That's just, again, there's no deadline. There's no force behind it. How about saying, I will get out of debt in the next 6 months. So you put a deadline for yourself. All right, that's it. By June of that, 2020, I'll be out of debt. This means you have 6 months. And if your debt, for example, is about, let's say, $30,000, now all you got to do is to find ways to pay $5,000 per month to actually be able to pay your debt by the end of basically June. So now this is a far more effective goal for your New Year's resolution than just I'll get out of debt this year when you're almost drunk and probably close to blacking out or something, right? So that's another great point to be done on our New Year's Eve, basically. And if you use these two simple strategies of making your goals specific and putting a good deadline, now you have a higher chance. And of course, for the more elementary type of goal setters, I recommend to set their goals at lower levels. So if you really feel like making $5,000 a month just to pay for your debt is going to be too much, why don't you just extend your debts to, let's say, for the next 9 months or the whole year, or let's say by the December of 2020. Now, all of a sudden, you have to actually, save an extra $2,500 per month instead of $5,000 to be able to pay your debts by the end of the year, right? So by trying to make those goals a little bit easier, and the same goes applies, let's say, your fitness. So instead of saying, like, I'm going to lose, let's say, 30 pounds in 3 months or 4 months, you can actually make it 8 months or 10 months, right? So by making those goals a little bit more easier to attain, you actually find it a lot, find a lot more motivation to pursue those goals and, of course, to hopefully not give up on them when the things basically get tough.
Awesome. Now, one part of all of this is goal setting for me personally. And another part is basically doing some grooming, not physical, not literal. I'm talking about figurative grooming, meaning there has been things in the past year or a couple of years or a few years of your life that hasn't been working out. There are things you're doing out of habit that are not serving your purpose, or things need to change, basically. And I would like to basically just take this time again to reflect, look at the past, and find those things as well. And now you can also say this is can be part of your goal, but I'm differentiating between these two as one goals, one set of goals being one bunch of things that I want to achieve, like new things, and this one is another batch of stuff that I want to do that I basically want to avoid doing or put aside or forget about or change. Now, what is your attitude towards that kind of thinking? Do you like to do that kind of thinking, especially on occasions such as a New Year or birthday or something like that?
Well, of course, that depends on the occasion itself and how satisfied I was of the last year. But ultimately, New Year is meant to make us new. That's what we call it, New Year, right? We are looking for becoming a new person.
Right.
And that is why I believe that such attitudes are generally very, very constructive, because they help us to get out of very bad habits. Because a lot of the things that we think are ours, or like it's just me, it really isn't you. It's just some bad habit, and that could be changed, actually. So from my point of view, I like your attitude about this matter, and I think it's a great idea to try to pursue this approach, especially for the new year. And it's really about that, because it gives you a very different feeling. I mean, you yourself feel much better in this regard. And I think that's the ultimate goal that you have here. And I definitely with you. It's a great one. And since you just said this right now, actually, I'm curious, because we are now basically on air here. I'm actually curious, Pujix, what are some of your New Year's resolution goals? I'm actually curious. Like, could you share one of them with our listeners?
Oh, of course. Look, one of the things that I always put myself in the past, at least a few years, I've put for myself is basically reading a certain number of books. Now,
wow. And may I ask you what's the target here for 2020?
For me, is 50 books this year. Hopefully,
wow,
and it can
50 books.
It can, yeah.
That's like an average of probably 3 books a month, more than that, probably, right?
Yeah, 300 and something. And this can come in different forms. This can come in audiobooks, ebooks, or physical books. There's no limit here. And
do textbooks count or not? By the way, do textbooks count?
Yes, I do count my textbooks as reading too, because there are new subjects, new material, new reading, new learning. So I do count my textbooks as part of it. Yes, and that by default is a handful of them.
That's amazing. 50 books a year, man. It's like 1 book per week almost.
But yeah, almost a book per week. That would basically be it. Yeah, it's difficult. Sometimes hard to attain, but it also pushes me.
One question. I just want to know right now, how many books did you read in 2019?
In 2019, I read I think somewhere around 39 to 40. Let's say 40 books.
Amazing. You see, guys. You see, listeners. This is good goal setting. So Pujix is not going to set out to read 50 books in 1 year. If he has just getting started with reading and he just gets all tired when he reads a book. So Pujix is already a reader, right? He's already a pro reader. He's already read 40 books this year. So making that target to 50 is very, very, doable for him, right? Whereas if someone else has never read anything other than back of the shampoo bottles, basically, so for him or her, it'll be a little bit tough to read 50 books, right? So for him, if it's like, oh, yes, I listened to Pujix, and Pujix said he wants to read 50 books this year. I will read 52. That is not going to be good, because they are setting themselves up for failure that way, because they are failing to see that Pujix is already a pro reader. So he just doesn't have to, change himself dramatically to read 50 books. He's already done 40 this year, right? So that is another great element, to look at your last performance last year and then set goals based upon that.
Yeah, and I also want to clarify, not to make this like a huge deal, because not all of those 40 books that I read in the past year were all equal in terms of both in terms of the how long they were, how many pages they had, for example, how many word counts, etc., and also how much I gave myself to some books I read super quickly. I basically skimmed through them, not skimmed. I literally read every page, but some books I come back and contemplate more, but some books I just read the page by page and go by. So I mean, obviously there's a difference between the length of the books between the each book has different lengths, but there's also a difference in the content of the book. Some books are easier to read and faster to read, and you don't need to contemplate too much over them. And some books you dedicate more time. And also, I gotta say, I don't count. So sometimes I start a book and I'm like, no, sorry, it's too many books. I'm not too interested. Put it aside. I don't count them as books, but I also attempt them, and that's perfectly. It just popped to my mind, so I thought mentioning it. I think there's so many books out there that if you're not appreciating a book, it's not giving you anything you want or you're looking for. just put it aside and move on. You've given it a fair try. Just if it didn't work, just put it aside and move on to next book. Because I'm like, there's plenty of them coming out every year, and I have a wish list that is only extending. So
Wow.
so it's impossible to catch up, and I understand that. So I'm not. If I give a book a fair try and it doesn't give me what I want, I'm going to put it aside. That's just another point
Amazing.
of book reading.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then again, it's a great goal,
Uh,
man. Like you have this goal for
yeah.
yourself. It's
Yeah.
going to motivate you throughout the entire year, man. Like the next book, let's hit it off. It's going to be awesome.
Exactly. It's pretty good, and I love it. I personally love it. Now, this is my personal, and I wasn't a big reader. We talked about this a few times
That's
in the
right.
past episodes. I wasn't a big reader. I became one reading of like pushing myself basically, and it happened. And yeah, the first year's goal was this year I want to read 10 books, and actually I told one of my friends who was a massive book reader, and she told me, well, that's what I read in a month. And I was like, oh well, that's everybody has their own limits.
Wow.
So, so to your point. Anyways, now, so back to our subject of the new year, turning a leaf, changing. Um, what are the changes that you're looking for in your own life and your businesses that you were willing to share with us?
For sure. Well, first of all, 2020 for me is going to be a very big year because we are going to expand. Despite the fact that the world is projected to go through a tough crisis by the end of 2020, I personally believe in the motto that I learned from Grant Cardone, and that is always expand, never basically. So my biggest focus during this year is expanding the business in multiple countries. So the 4 countries that I have in mind right now that I want to begin establishing my companies after Finland are Sweden, Portugal, France, and Germany. So I really would like to expand. You know, we're kind of like guys. We want to like leave something behind. I was talking to a friend of mine and said like, yeah, you guys just like to pee on everything, right? So we just want to, not that I would like to pee on anything in different countries, but what I would really like to do is to actually, have the opportunity to expand basically my global reach. So that's one of my biggest ambitions this year that I really want to work on. Of course, I'm a polyglot, so every year I set language goals, and I intend to add basically about an average of 6 new languages to my repertoire during 2020. Of course, that will be at a level that is probably around A2 to B1 because obviously, hopefully I will later discuss this in some of our programs. The degrees at which you learn a language are very different. So learning a language at a level, for example, A2 or B1 will take almost 1/4 of the time that is required to reach, let's say, advanced level. So when I say 6 languages, I'm not talking about like advanced level fluency because that's going to take an unbelievable amount of time, probably 10,000 hours per language, which I simply don't have. But hopefully I can actually add 6 more languages to my repertoire at an A2 to B1 level, because that doesn't take a lot of time. It's an approximately in about 500 hours you can actually reach B1 in any language. So hopefully I could do that basically, and that'll take some time, some basically nights that I have to sacrifice for this, but still it'll be a great goal for me personally. And in terms of basically our podcast together, basically I'll be very happy that in 2020 we're going to celebrate our next podcast anniversary. It's going to be very great. Looking forward to it. And I've actually postponed the publication of my book, the Polyglot Guidebook, basically, because I wanted to make sure the quality of the book is high. And of course, I wanted to first somehow enhance my global reach in different countries before going for the publication. And so hopefully I would like to get back and to refine and improve the Mulligan method, as basically mentioned in my upcoming book, the Polyglot Guidebook. So I want to work on that book further, develop the method, take some of the bugs out, and improve the quality overall. And more importantly, I would like to actually be able to dedicate more time to my friends and to my loved ones, because in 2019 I was extremely busy, so I was always moving around and I didn't always have enough time for my friends and for my loved ones. So hopefully I really hope that I can dedicate a lot more time to simply just be in touch with my friends and loved ones more, because I usually don't have that kind of time. Hopefully through some time management, I can actually dedicate more time to basically my family, my loved ones, and my friends, so that I can actually improve basically their mood as well as myself. So hopefully these are like some of the top things that I have in my mind for the 2020. But of course, as you know, I like to set a lot more detailed goals, and especially I like to make sure that my goals are written down. So those are the things that hopefully I have to work on as well. And we'll see. But that's pretty much how 2020 will look like as a highlight for me personally. But there's still a lot of work ahead.
Of course, of course. I appreciate that. And those are some beautiful goals. And especially the family and friends part. Oh, man, they touched me right here in the heart. No,
That's
I'm
right.
not. I mean, I said it in a manner that I was kidding, but I'm serious. It's beautiful. And
It's my pleasure, buddy.
yeah, yeah, of course. And also, you mentioned it, and I want to clarify. We're not going to talk about BTP goals, like the podcast goals, because we tend to do that on the anniversary of the podcast itself. We have
Exactly.
increments as year by year. I believe it was in May. I'm too a little bit vague, but I think it's sometime in May that we're going to celebrate this the second anniversary
We're
of the.
like bad parents who forgot their child's birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's like
hey, Johnny, what was your birthday? Was it July 5th or July 9th? I forgot. All right.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even July 9th, or it's like the different months. No, I believe it was
Like,
in May.
were you a July boy or like an August boy? I forgot totally.
Yeah. So that kind of thing. Now we take care of it good. We just forget the birthday. Anyways, so and well, it's January 1st. I know you don't want to spend. Speaking of family and friends, I don't want to. I don't want. I know people don't want to spend the entire day on January 1st listening to me and you. So we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna wrap up with this beautiful day that we're all enjoying. I hope
Oh, yeah.
everybody's enjoying this day.
Probably
And
some of our listeners right now are drunk a little bit, tuning on to the podcast. Let me
from
see
last
what Dan
night.
and Pouya are talking about. Yeah.
So, is there anything else that in this manner that you want to talk about that we didn't cover, or you want to basically a wrap up?
For sure, definitely. Well, first of all, Pujix, I'm very happy right now to actually talk to you. One of the first people that I talked to right now, basically on New Year's Eve, and I'm very happy that basically 2020 is here, and we're going to celebrate the year, hopefully. And more importantly, I would like to also congratulate our listeners with this wonderful occasion. The year 2020 is here, and that means a lot of great opportunities lay ahead. And more importantly, today we talked about New Year's resolutions and how to make your New Year not just a fun and exciting event, but actually something that can change and transform your life. And we use the whole symbolism of becoming new and using the new year as an opportunity to actually transform ourselves, our lives, our businesses, and our relationships. So ultimately, we talked about how to set goals properly on the new year and how to make sure that our New Year's resolutions are actually followed up. And we said the biggest mistakes that we make is that number one, we only set our goals during the New Year's Eve, which is not enough. You want to actually set your goals throughout the basically year. So just doing it once a year, not going to cut it. And the reason that we mentioned earlier, most of us, we abandon our goals completely by January 15th, is that we do not repeatedly set goals throughout the year. And ultimately, we mentioned how we can actually make our goals more attainable. So we said it's best to set goals that are not extremely crazy and that are within our reach. We came with a couple of examples. One of them was actually you reading 50 books per year. We said that Pujix is the kind of guy who read 40 books last year. So setting a goal at 50 will definitely be realistic. But if you are a guy who's never read any book, you probably should settle with, 4 or 5 books or something. And that's going to be a lot better than setting an unrealistic goal. And of course, we talked about the importance of setting deadlines, that having a goal that has no deadline has no power behind it. And of course, when it comes to your deadlines, you want to make sure the deadlines are set in a way that you will actually achieve them. And more importantly, we said that goals should be specific. Getting rich or getting smart or getting educated, these are not specific. Whereas setting, for example, achieving, let's say, perhaps making $50,000 to pay your debts, or losing 30 pounds, or reading 50 books. These are specific goals, which are going to help you a lot more in your long-term pursuits. And ultimately, it was a great occasion. Very happy. Both of us, for now, we are not drunk, so this podcast was recorded completely sober. And so those are listeners who are now pretty happy with the new year. Still, we're glad to actually share the content here with you guys. And I'm very happy to be here with you, Pujix, to discuss this great thing. Once again, happy birthday. Of course, it's kind of like a birthday, but happy new year to you, Pujix, as well as to all of our listeners. Because this new year itself could be actually like a real birthday. For me personally, there's no difference between a birthday and a new year, because both of them are really about one thing: becoming somehow new, becoming different, becoming someone that you've never been before. And the way to do so, of course, is to treat this occasion not just as a day. You see, a birthday is not just a day. A New Year is not just a day. These are occasions. These are opportunities to transform yourself and to appreciate the things you've done and the things you want to achieve. So with that being said, I'm very, very happy to be here. And I wish you and basically our listeners a wonderful, wonderful new year. Hopefully 2020 will be a year when you will transform yourself hopefully this day and this year hopefully will change you so much that you won't even wait for your birthday. You just like that was mine. I really transformed myself, and life is a lot better now because of it. And of course, I hope that you guys will achieve your goals in the year 2020.
Oh, thank you, Dan. That was awesome. And yes, thank you for spending the first day of your new year and new decade for all that matters
Wow,
with
that's
us.
cool. Never thought about it this way.
Well, yeah. So thank you for that, all Dan and all of our listeners. And I hope we can be of service for the rest of this year and the rest of this decade. Until a later episode and a later time, we talk, we see you, we hear from you. Have a good one.